Howdy, folks. Welcome to Loops Part 2. In Loops Part 1, you learn what a loop is, and you learn about a specific type of loop called the for loop, which was useful for iterating over arrays or performing a loop a certain number of times. In this video, we're going to learn about the two other types of loops in JavaScript, which are called the while loop and the do while loop. And by the end of this video, you'll have learned all three types of loops in JavaScript, and you'll be a JavaScript loop expert. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, here I am in VS Code. Once again, I have two files, an empty JavaScript file and an HTML file just for running the JavaScript in the browser. So we'll start with explaining what a while loop is and how it's different from a for loop. A while loop is used when we don't know how many times we want our loop to execute. We know only that we want it to keep executing while a certain condition is true. And then if that condition becomes false, we want it to finally not be looping anymore and proceed with the rest of our code. So that's different than a for loop. With a for loop, we specified that we wanted to run the loop maybe a certain number of times, or we knew at least that we wanted it to run as many times as the length of an array or length of a string. It's useful for iterating, but with a while loop, it's handy when we have no idea how many times we want this loop to execute. We just know that we want it to keep doing so until a certain condition is met. So let's imagine a program where we get a word from the user and we need to validate that that word is 4 letters long. We want our program to keep asking the user for another word until they finally enter a word that's 4 letters long. And maybe the user is really bad at this and it takes them 100 tries. But if they finally enter one, it will stop asking them for a new word and proceed with the rest of the program. So let's make that real quick. So we'll just make a variable. We'll call it user word, and we'll initialize it as an empty string. And now we'll get into our while loop. So to declare a while loop, we say while. And then in the parentheses, we put our condition under which we want this while loop to keep executing. So in this case, it will keep executing as long as the length of the user word is not 4. So we'll say user word dot length is not equal to 4. So while the word is not 4 letters long, keep doing whatever in this code block. And so in the code block, we will get the input from the user and assign it to user word. So let's do that. User word equals prompt. Prompt returns the input from the user. We'll say, please enter a 4-letter word. And then we want to let them know if they got it wrong. So we'll say if user word dot length is not equal to 4, we'll alert them. We'll say alert. You did not enter a 4-letter word. And then finally, if they do get a word that is 4 letters long, we'll let them know that they did it right. So we'll alert, say, great job choosing a 4-letter word. Okay, let's see what happens when I run this. Okay, I'll start by entering car. I did not enter a 4-letter word. That's true. JavaScript. Okay, I think I see what's going on here. I could probably just keep doing this forever until I finally enter a 4-letter word like loop. Greatjon. Oh, I had a typo. Greatjon choosing a 4-letter word. Cool, that works. That's the gist of a while loop, and I'll go ahead and correct that typo. it would have just kept going and going and going if I kept failing and failing and failing to write a 4-letter word into the prompt. Very handy. There is another type of loop that I mentioned at the beginning of the video called a do-while loop. So let's say later in this program, I want the user to be able to choose another 4-letter word. I want to display to the user what their current word is, and then I want them to be given the chance to change that word and go through the validation process again of validating that it's 4 letters long. So if I just copied and pasted my while loop again, this wouldn't work. The reason being, by this point, the length of the word is already 4. And so this would evaluate to false, and it would skip over the loop entirely. And to demonstrate, I'll go ahead and choose loop again, and it doesn't execute the second part of the loop. So if I did want it to display my current word, let's see, I would say alert, your current word is, and we'll concatenate user word in there. And we'll say, you may choose a new word. Great. And then if they fail to get it right, we'll alert them. And then we'll begin repeating the same task over and over again as such. And, you know, we do actually want to display what their current word is each and every time. This should probably work. Let's have a look. I'll choose loop. It says I did a good job choosing a 4-letter word. It says your current word is loop. You may choose a new word. Car. Oh, right. That's not 4 letters long. Okay. I'll choose a new word. HTML. Great. And, you know, we do want to get our little alert telling us how great of a job we did at the end, of course. But the problem with this is, look, it's a lot of repeated code. This is just hideous. There is a more syntactically sweet way to do this. You should never have to write the exact same code block twice. It's just ugly. And that's why the do-while loop is implemented in JavaScript. It guarantees that the code inside of the code block will execute at least once, regardless of any condition. So it runs the code first and then enters a while loop scenario. So I'll write it down below here. Here's how you declare a do-while loop. You would say do this code block, and then while this condition is true, continue re-executing the code in the do code block. So the code block, we would just grab what we had here. It would be just the same. And the same with the condition. This is basically a way of refactoring what I had done earlier to make it have no repeated code. So now that I've set this up, I can go ahead and delete all of this. Now that I've put it in a do-while loop, it's guaranteed that the user will see what their current word is and be given the chance to choose a new word, regardless of the fact that initially they already have a 4-letter word chosen. So, but of course, if they choose a new word and it is not 4 letters long, it will re-execute the code in the do block until finally they exit out of the do-while loop and get the alert of approval. So let's run that and see how it looks. Okay, so this is the first time around. I'm choosing my 4-letter word. It said I did a great job. And now it's showing me my current word is loop. You may choose a new word. Let's go with cat. Oh, I did not let it enter a 4-letter word. Okay, my current word is cat. I may choose a new word. I'm gonna mess up one more time just to drive the point home. Okay, Didn't enter a 4-letter word. My current word is JavaScript. I may choose a new word. I'm going to go with HTML. Great job choosing a 4-letter word. So there you go. The while loop is very, very useful when you don't know how many times you want to execute a loop. Slightly less common, but still fairly common, is the do while loop. You might run into this scenario where you're trying to get it to execute something once and then loop, and without knowing about a do while loop, you can find yourself writing some repeated code. This can come in handy once in a while, where you want to kind of not have to worry about this condition until after your code block has been executed at least once. So now you know all 3 types of loops in JavaScript. I think by now you're probably beginning to get a clear idea of the various use cases for the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. So I hope that these videos have been helpful, and I hope that you use a lot of loops in your code because they're great. All right, folks, happy coding.